first and foremost, Happy New Year. I know that we're already through the first month of the year, but this is the first opportunity for many of you to attend one of our Fit for Learning webinars in 2024. So we're really excited to spend a little bit of time with all of you today to discuss how you're going to be mapping out your financial journey and how you can go through the process of establishing some different goals for yourself. My name is Kyle Bingham. I'm the Managing Director of Financial Fitness for Life. Joining me today is John Poole. He's one of our education consultants that's based out of Houston, Texas. Here's what we'd like to accomplish today. We want to walk through not only what goals are and why they're important, but really help you to facilitate that process. And so the first thing that we want to hit on today is just helping you to understand where you're at in your financial journey and what are some of the different decisions that you need to be making based upon where you're at in your life and where you're at in your career. Then we're going to talk a little bit about life events. You know, for those of you that have attended in the past, life events is such an important consideration when you're doing your financial planning, and it's just as important when you're doing your goal setting for the year and making sure that you're adapting to some of those changes that have happened or will happen in your life. We're going to talk about the SMART method and are your financial goals smart? We want you to understand how to kind of work through this process. In a lot of ways, SMART goals are going to help you to improve your chances of success. And then last thing that we'll hit on are what are some of the key financial goals that really should be on everyone's radars? How are you going to set yourself up for a successful 2024 with your different financial goals? And so with that, what we're going to talk about first is understanding where you're at on your financial wellness journey. And I'll just preface this quickly and then I'll send it over to John for a few moments. But I think one of the questions that we probably get more often than any other question are folks asking, what should I be doing? What should I be focusing on? And I think that that's such an important question. And quite frankly, those decisions are going to be changing as you go throughout your life and throughout your career. And once you're able to kind of see where you're at in life, it's also going to help to facilitate the goal setting process. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to John and have him walk you through some things that you need to be aware of and focusing on and how you're going to be able to kind of tie that into your goal setting. John?
Yeah, thank you, Colin, and thank you everyone for joining today. First off, when we look at this slide, you know, whether you're maybe in your early or mid, late career stages or even approaching or in retirement, you don't have to check everything off this list. You know, it's never a one size fits all. These are some things that we've identified in certain life stages or career stages that seem to be topics that we discuss with folks either in group settings or one-on-ones. And I think that we can all read this, but it's important to sometimes just have it in front of you. Whether you think about this on your drive into the office or whether you're walking across the kitchen to get a cup of coffee if you're working from home, these are topics that are important to us, whether we're talking about, you know, maybe making a major purchase like a home, obviously, or talking about maybe paying down some debt, thinking about building an emergency fund, or, hey, you know, healthcare is not getting cheaper, is it? So we need to budget for that. Whatever financial decisions are kind of on the front burner as opposed to, well, I'll put that on the back burner or top of mind, we could say, some of these get lumped into certain life phases and career phases. It's important to not forget them. It's easy to procrastinate or to set things to the side. Oh, there's so many important things going on. I know in my own life, for example, Little League season is about to start up, and I'll be carting a kid off to various tournaments and practices, etc. It's an election year, and I want to watch people argue on the news and catch up on neighborhood gossip, etc. a lot of things are happening in the world and in our lives. And whether we're just starting out our career or we're, kind of on the downward slope and preparing for retirement maybe in a few years, although there are a lot of things happening, there are some things that are more important to our families and to ourselves financially. And as we can see on these lists, emergency fund, maybe building up some credit, maybe paying down some debt, using catch-up contributions to make sure that we're planning properly in our employer-sponsored plan, or hey, I've got some questions about Social Security and Medicare. I've heard about them for decades. Now it's time to start paying attention and learning more about this. These are all financial decisions that we probably thought about, each one of us. And I'm glad that you tuned in today, because we do want to touch on some of these.
Exactly. And so I would just use this as your starting point, as you're starting to think about your goals. And one of the common examples that I oftentimes give is, if you're just starting out in your career, Medicare and Social Security are probably not things that really need to be on your radar right now, and vice versa. And so I think it's a matter of just reflecting on your situation, using a list like this to help you to get some better understanding of, okay, I need to be doing this, that, or the other. Now, the next step, after we've kind of looked at our life stage and what we need to be doing, is not forgetting about life events and making sure that those are also things that we start to build into our financial goals as well. And so, John, what are some thoughts that can kind of help folks to remember that when they're going through some of these life changes, that they're also incorporating that into their goals?
Yeah, it's funny, because as we look at these life changes, how they're set up on the slide, it almost looks linear, whether you're looking top or bottom. But several of these can occur at different phases of our lives, right? Whether it's marriage, divorce, career, job change, birth, adoption of children, buying and selling homes, of course, and transitioning to retirement. Well, we know when that's usually going to come at the end, right? But whatever major event is happening, you can tackle it. You can make certain decisions and certain planning strategies to positively affect any one of these, however many times they may occur. Some of these may occur several times, and that's okay. But not losing sight, I think, of some simple steps. One of those, recognizing it, paying attention to it, and then maybe doing some proper planning. I was looking for my pen. I usually either have one stuck behind my ear or handy nearby, because I like to go analog. I'm the pen to paper person. But if you're like that, great. But if you're the spreadsheet and spreadsheets for spreadsheet type of person, and you know who you are, that's okay too. And I think Kyle's going to get into this in just a moment. But it's important to recognize that there are some major life events that also, of course, can be repeated in a great way many times. But at each step, we do need to recognize that if we take the proper approach, we can manage these.
Exactly. And again, our goal with talking about these life stages and talking about these life events, it's really in an effort to help you to start to kind of prioritize some of those goals that you have and some of those different things that you're looking to achieve. And so that's kind of where I want to segue now a little bit more into actually talking about what is it going to take for you to actually set some financial goals that are going to give you a high likelihood of succeeding that. And as this question implies here, are your financial goals SMART? And what I mean by that, and what I'd like to take a few moments talking about, is this concept of the SMART method. And basically what the SMART method does, it helps you and almost really kind of forces you to focus on what it is that you want to accomplish. It's also going to help you to have more clarity. It's going to help you to use your time wisely. It's going to also help you even with motivation, to help you to stay disciplined to those specific goals that you've set for yourself. And I'm going to walk you through an example here in just a moment, but just so we can kind of walk through what each of those steps are, it starts with creating a specific goal. That yes, maybe we do want to pay off debt, which is a great initial goal, but we need to drill down a little bit more into what is it that we actually want to be paying off and how that we're going to go about doing that. Then we move into measurable. How are we going to track the progress, and how are we going to see that progress that we're making? That's the second step. Step number 3 is it achievable? We want to look at ourselves and look at whether or not these goals that we're setting, do we even have the tools and resources available to be able to do that? And if we don't, we can definitely work through that process. But having achievable goals is an important part of the equation. Then we move into, is it something that is realistic? So based upon what my goal is, am I going to be able to make those changes or make those adjustments that will help me to stay on track to be able to reach that goal? And then lastly is giving it a time frame. Is it time-based? How long is it going to take for you to get to that particular goal? And another point worth mentioning here too is that there's going to be some short-term goals that you have. There's also going to be some longer-term goals that you have. In both of those situations, you still are able to use this type of a method. And so I want to go back to the example of paying off debt and really just show you what each of these steps is going to look like. So again, paying off debt. I think that a lot of people start out the new year, this is one of the goals that they have. We need to get specific. What is it that you want to pay off? In this example that I'm using, there's a credit card balance that we want to pay that off in full by the end of the year. Okay, great. Now we have a specific goal that we've set. Measurable. Well, we know that credit card has an outstanding balance on it. So it's something that as we start to chip away at that, we're going to be able to continue to measure those results. Step number 3 with the ability to achieve that. Well, we know if we want to pay that off in 2024, it's going to take around $125 a month plus any interest that's going to be accruing on that credit card. So now we know, okay, this is what it's going to take to be able to reach that goal. Realistic. This is a really important piece of all of these steps that you're taking. Is it even realistic for you to be able to think, yes, I can come up with that $125 plus interest? And if it is realistic, how are you going to be able to do that? And again, for this example, we're just simply saying here, well, I've got a close friend that lives down the road from me. We work together. You know what? I'm going to start carpooling to work every day. And you know what? With gas prices, I'm going to be able to save a pretty significant chunk of money. I'm going to essentially kind of cut my transportation costs, or at least my gas bill, in half. So now we have some money that we're going to be able to hit that goal and pay off that debt. And then that last piece of it being time bound, we want to make sure that within that specific period of time that you're going to be able to reach that goal. So what I want all of you to try to get to as you're thinking through your goals is to get to this statement down at the very bottom. This is what a SMART goal is. I will pay off my $1,500 credit card balance in 12 months by putting $125 per month plus interest towards it. I'll achieve this by reducing my transportation costs. I'm going to save on gas, and I'm going to do this by carpooling to work. Now we have a goal that's going to hold us accountable, but it also gives us that reassurance and even that confidence that we have an actual plan set forth. And that kind of brings up a point that I want to make here for just a few moments. Goals are very good for planning out what it is that you want to do, but you need to actually create a system or steps that you're going to take to be able to make that progress. And I think that when in my own life, when I've tried to set goals, with a lot of the clients that we've worked with over the years and a lot of the individuals, what ends up happening is the goal is set, it's a good goal. We now kind of have that framework built, but we really don't go back in and map out the system that's going to actually provide us with the tools that we need to be successful. And so I encourage all of you, as you're walking through your goals for the year, as you're walking through, what it is that you want to accomplish, use this SMART method as a way to do it. There's worksheets and there's a lot of different ways that you can go about doing this, but hopefully this is really going to help you as you're starting to move forward. So now what I really want to talk about now is what are some key financial goals that you should be considering for 2024? Because I think in a lot of cases, it can be overwhelming going through the goal setting process. And our purpose today is to help you to see that if you're taking the right steps, it doesn't need to be too overwhelming or feel as though you're not going to be able to accomplish those goals. One thing that I would recommend is take some time, if you haven't done so already, and really just examine where you're at in your situation right now. And what I mean by that is we all need to establish a baseline. There needs to be certain systems that are running in the background that are going to set us up for success. And so those are those things that we talk about on a regular basis when we're talking about financial wellness and financial planning. Make sure that you start with some of those basic points, like having a budget. If you don't have one, let's get that budget created to where you're familiar with your income and your expenses, that you really know the money that's going in and the money that's going out. It's also a great time at the beginning of the year to take a few moments and inventory the debt that you have. What is the debt that you have, and how are we going to create a debt repayment plan? Third, we need to make sure that we're planning for the unexpected, right? And that means starting to chip away and build that emergency fund. And that fourth component, which I think a lot of you are already doing, is we need to be saving for our future. And I know a lot of you are already doing that. You're contributing to your retirement accounts at work, which is fantastic. And those four components right there, we want to make sure that those get dialed in, and those are some of those initial goals that we want to think about. And once we have those things in place, it's going to make it so much easier for us to kind of take that next step to focusing on paying down specific debts that we have, to really focus and drive saving more into retirement accounts. And then obviously we have a lot of other goals. It could be, saving for a family vacation. If we don't have a budget in place and if we're not managing that, it's going to be really difficult for us to ever achieve that goal of saving for that vacation. So again, start with those baseline goals, build that foundation, and work from there. John, what are some other thoughts that you would have just to kind of help folks as they're kind of considering what goals they should be setting for the year?
Well, I thought you touched on an important one. Building up that emergency fund, preparing for something that's unexpected. I was in a tire shop not too long ago, putting new tires on my truck, and I saw some people filling out credit applications to finance tires. And congrats. I'm glad they're putting new tires on the car or truck, a vehicle, whatever it is, to be safe. But it's just an extra level of debt that person or people were taking on for an emergency type of expense. If you have $1,000 in an emergency fund, you don't have to fill out the ABC tire shop credit application. You can pay for it. It's little things like that where that emergency fund will come in handy, and making a list of what you have coming in, pay period to pay period, and then what you have going out, and then adjusting accordingly. It's not fun to put it in front of you, either pen to paper or on a spreadsheet. Nobody likes doing that. Well, maybe some people do, but it can be uncomfortable, but it's necessary, and it can get you where you want to go. And I'll just say this, and it's going to be contradictory. It'll be a little weird, but if you know me, you won't be surprised. I'll say this, be persistent. Don't give up, but also don't be afraid to quit. That doesn't really match up, does it? Let me explain. Be consistent with great behaviors when you're planning, or when you're budgeting, or when you're writing down things that are coming in and writing expenses going out and figuring out how you can make it fit better. But also, if you're using a method or a strategy that hasn't worked well for you for the past 3 months, don't be afraid to quit that and try a new approach, okay? This is your money, this is your future, whether it's you singly or if it's your family that's depending on you and you want to help. Don't be afraid to quit an ineffective strategy and try to find one that's going to work better for you. Kyle, our other team members, we're all here to help.
Exactly, and John, I do think that's a great point. It's your life, it's your situation, and it needs to be your goals. And I think that there is a lot of noise going on around us. There's always something, in the news when we're looking at the economy, when we're looking at the market, and it is so important to be able to kind of tune out some of that noise and really focus on what is it that you want. What is it going to take for you to get there? But don't be afraid. If me, for an example, I'm not a budget app person. I still love to use an Excel spreadsheet, and some of you might be thinking, I would never want to touch an Excel spreadsheet. I'm perfectly fine using a budgeting app. And these are those types of things where, we want to provide the framework, but it may require, some trial and error a little bit as you're starting to go through this process. And so here's what I want you to walk away from today. I think a good starting point for every person, depending upon who you ask, anywhere from, let's call it 2 to 4 goals is a good starting point to really hone in and focus on some specific goals that you want to accomplish in 2024. And so once you've kind of decided on how many goals you want to set, go back in, reflect on where you're at in your career, better understand those decisions that you need to be making, because that's also going to help you to prioritize some of your goals. And as we always talk about, once you know some of these decisions that you need to make sure that you sit down and have a conversation with one of us, to have a conversation with your advisor, to make sure that that's getting put into your financial plan. Then we move into the idea of life events. Life happens. It's happening to us all at any given point in time. We need to reflect on those life events, and it's okay if we need to adjust some of our goals along the way because of those different life events. When you look at somebody that is single and just starting out in their career versus somebody that's mid-career, that's married, that has a family, those goals of those two individuals in a lot of ways are going to look different. Their financial plans are going to look different, and that's okay. And that's why it's important to kind of walk through these first steps. Third step, like we talked about, take a little bit of time to think about what are your SMART goals? What are some things you want to do? And then walk through those 5 steps. And what we want to do is get to the point that you've created financial goals that create a system for you, something that's always going to be running, and it's going to allow for continuing improvements. Don't be overly vague. Make sure that you're mapping out each one of those steps that you need to be taking, because like I mentioned earlier, goals are good for planning that progress. The steps and the system that you implement, that's when you're actually going to start to make that progress. And I believe that as you're starting to design a system that allows for progress, make sure it's something that's working for you. And if we need to adjust the strategy, the approach, that's perfectly fine to do that, because every person tuning in today is going to be a little bit different, and we want to make sure that you're going to be successful in this goal setting process. And so with that, as all of you know, we're here to help you. So feel free, if you'd just like to sit down and reflect on your goals, talk through what we've talked about today, you can scan that QR code and you can set an appointment with one of our education consultants. We are also going to be sending out a link to the recording of today's presentation. I know that we get a lot of folks that want to go back and look at a slide or two or just listen to what we talked about. You will be getting an email, so just keep an eye out for that in about the next 24 hours or so, and you'll be able to go back and review and take a look at everything that we talked about today. And as we're moving into 2024, we're going to start to drill down a little bit more on some of the topics that a lot of you continue to want more of. And so for February, Debt is something that it's on a lot of folks' minds, and specifically looking at, do I pay down debt? Do I save for my future? How do I balance those out? And so that's what we're going to be looking at in February. So again, you can scan that QR code, get yourself registered for our Fit for Learning in February. But this is somewhat of the cadence that we're going to have in 2024, is really listening to those things that all of you keep asking for more help on, and helping you to start to look at how to apply a lot of these other financial wellness principles and how to balance some of these different goals and objectives that you have. And so with that, I just want to thank you all for the time that you've taken out of your day to be here. Thanks again for tuning in. Happy 2024. We're really excited to have the opportunity to work with a lot of you as we move into the new year. If there's anything else that we can do to help, let us know. Be on the lookout for our email that should be coming with links to everything that we talked about today. And with that, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks, everyone.